Hey, thanks for joining me. We're going to be building the M41 Walker Bulldog today. Full paint. I only use spray paint, basic brushes, and paints. Let's get it started. First thing I do is usually spray the whole entire kit without taking any off of the plastic mounts. Right now I use kind of that handle. It really helps keep an even coat. I typically do this in the evening. Let it dry overnight. After getting a nice coat of paint down and it's dry enough to work with, I start detailing, painting wheels, whatever I can when it's still on the kit. This makes it super easy for me to handle, hold, and not really monkey with, not drop, any of that kind of stuff. So things like wheels, sprockets, those are the things that are frustrating enough to want to keep on the kit and just paint. Like I've mentioned, I'm just using Tester's modeling paints. Bought this pack off of Amazon. It's a military pack, all flat enamel. Chuck the brush. One of the nice things, I do have a hands-free clip mount. Has a magnifying glass, a light, and all that kind of stuff, but here I'm just letting it hold my work, so it's easier to paint. Sometimes it shakes, as you can see, but pretty much it's really nice to have. So I do put in a wash. This is black, about 75% and 25% thinner. And then I go ahead and after I do the wash, I go back in with just pure thinner and wipe it off on a towel as you go, just so you're leaving some of the black highlights, details on the bolts and such on the rims. Here I've got a touch paint where it came off the modeling scaffolding, and then I continue to just kind of put a wash over things to make them look a bit rugged before I assemble them onto the tank. As you notice, I do a lot of base coating. Using a pair of tweezers helps a lot if you don't have any. Super helpful. I still tend to use my fingers once in a while. You'll catch me doing it. These base coats are nice before you put on like a gunmetal kind of look, just with a flat gray. Do all the different parts, then let it sit. Here I'm starting to mix together matte brown. I'm going to add some black, about 1 part to 3 parts. So black's the 1 part. Then I'll go ahead and add some thinner to basically thin out the paint. I want it to be a wash. We're going to be painting the tank with this base layer. Everything from this dark brown will go on, and as the paint gets thin on the brush, I continue going. What happens is it leaves heavier colors in some places and lighter in others as it dries, and then I'll still have some black paint to do the details, the seams, the bolts, the hatches, the latches. You'll see here as it goes along how I apply it. Just picked up some new brushes. They're The Artisan Shop, something like that, the Minute series. I'll put that down in the links. I find it is a great purchase. Love the handle. When you set it down on any surface, the brush tip stays off wherever you're putting it due to kind of the recessed part of the brush. Really handy. You'll see me kind of bounce back and forth between that and my other brushes. My other brushes, I got a hobby shop down near me, near my house. I can't remember what they're called. They're decent, but one of the ferrules snapped off while I was cleaning it. Nice thing with these new brushes, they're guaranteed lifetime for stuff like that not to happen. As you can see here, I'm not too worried about my brush kind of, you know, getting first like black, then brown. All of those different highlights are gonna blend really well in, and moving along, you know, just wipe it off on a cloth. I tend not to have a couple brushes going. I'd rather keep one wet the whole time. Here I start doing the bolts over the wash. And this black is thinned, but not a lot. As you'll see, the detail on this, I keep it pretty simple. I try to do shadows and different effects and have dark and light areas, because what we're gonna do near the end is spray this whole entire thing. When you do that, it's gonna give it a light dusting everywhere, and we'll start removing and revealing the underneath paint which we're painting on. And those details will pop, basically using a thinner wash and a later step. Here I go ahead and mix a little bit of silver with black. Going back and forth brings a little bit of black into the silver, which makes the silver a little nicer. And then the black has a tint a little bit like gunmetal. And I start to apply that onto the different parts of the upper gun mount. So if you do end up getting this Tamiya kit, the build went real nice. Most every piece worked really well. Treads kind of wanted to rip some of the wheels off like they do, they get tight, but here I just start painting some embellishments that I would rather see on the tank. I put a lot of kind of the silver highlights, and you know, as soon as we spray coat this with the mist, they'll hide a little bit, but they're cool details and I appreciate them even if it wasn't the same look that went out into the field. You can see with this buildup of paint we're getting different textures, which will reveal as we start to put on the next layers. Those next layers being the final coat, where I'm going to spray top coat almost like a mist onto the tank, which will be happening here soon. So with this, I basically get about 4 different colors going. I've darkened some of the brown that was used on the turret and have a thinned black and also a silver with a little bit of black and black with a little bit of silver. This will help with small details, making my own gunmetal kind of color, if you will. And then I just start applying the same kind of overall technique, not being too fussy with it. That's one of the best parts of this technique that you'll see is as it builds, you have kind of liberty to be a little loose with your paintbrush and going back and forth and creating more details and just kind of layering it on. make sure to do the underside of the tank too. Not that I'm expecting people to lift it up, but they will. Just due to the fact that you can maybe see it through the side of the wheels if it's up high, eye level. And I'll be doing every single part that I possibly can get my paintbrush into just to make sure that it's good to go. Same as before, you'll see me adding some of those metallic details, and then I go in through with black and kind of put on elements that I think would have shadows or some grime that's built up, especially on hardware or any latches or any raised details on the tank. And this just makes it look like it's been out in the field for a while. Maybe it's splashed through water, maybe some of the dirt's come off. We'll try to mimic some wear spots where men would climb in and up the side of the turret with washing off some of the dust and dirt, as you'll see coming up. So now I'm going to be using a coyote color versus the OD green that I started with, and I just have the model box. I just flip it over and use some pliers, whatever you have. Just realize you're going to get paint on them, and then just kind of pulsing, not holding down the sprayer at all, just kind of shooting it, small blast, super far away, probably about 14 inches back. And then make sure you don't do it too even. Some sides do a little bit more. You'll feel like you kind of oversprayed, but you don't have to worry about it. What we're going to do is go back in with some thinner and start washing this off. Here on the body, I make sure to get the tracks pretty good. I try to get them a little uneven, get them from many different angles and sides so it seems as realistic as possible. Once again, you're kind of just doing quick blasts at various angles, and you want to make sure that it's not too consistent. So you'll see in a couple spots, especially like the front versus the back, I'll go ahead and get a little bit more dirt because you know you're hitting the front a little bit more. Here I've decided to go with one of the 3 variants that this tank can come with for the decals. This one is option B, the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force. We sent, I think it said like 180 tanks there during the war. I'm not the best at doing decals, I'll admit, especially after you texture, it can be a little bit difficult. One thing that makes it a little hard is I pre-spray the decals, but as you see, they came out pretty nice. This is where we start removing some of that spray, that coyote tan that we sprayed over the whole entire tank. What I do is I have a thinner bottle, I have a couple ones to basically use as this wash, right? If there's some sediment in it, it settles down. But basically we're just going to be painting and brushing more aggressively if you want more of the tan to come off. If you go too hard, you will start to eat into that first coat that you painted, the brown and the black and all that. Also, make sure if you haven't done this before, test spot. Make sure you're not wiping, you actually pat. You'll see that I pat with a cloth. Wiping kind of creates a smudge mark that looks like you've wiped it clean. And on this size of a model, it doesn't look realistic. So how I decide where I'm going to remove the paint, where I keep it, is just thinking about where the men would walk up, like these handhold, footholds, sides of the tank, maybe bolts that you might pull, anything that might get snagged by a tree, the wheels, just basically pulling back some of this dust to reveal the color of the tank. And it makes it look more realistic if you just kind of take stuff from here and there off and kind of go in a random pattern. It's what I tend to do, and it helps a lot. One of the things that I really do enjoy when I'm taking off some of this dust that I spray coated on is you can't really ever go too far. That's a nice thing. So just kind of make sure that when you're doing the wheels, hit the track some, especially in the top, and you know, maybe not where it sits on the table, but to keep it more realistic. And you can go back and forth, use Q-tip if you want, just make sure that you do remove some of the fuzz that's left behind. And I think you'll be happy with this technique. It's pretty simple overall, low stress, and it gives a pretty good result. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe this technique can be something that you end up using on some of your tanks. Personally, I love watching all the different ones that I see out on YouTube, so I appreciate everybody out there. I just thought I'd put one of my own. A lot of times I am painting many different things, from ladders for tree stands, do some hunting, so rifles, I camo those up, all different kind of things. So I'll be putting that on my channel as I do more of it. Just thought I'd share this tank build with you. It's M41 Walker Bulldog. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you're interested, and take care.